The airport terminal hummed with pre-Valentine's Day chaos. Couples clutching roses, boarding announcements in Korean and English, the mechanical whir of luggage wheels on polished floors. "Hi, mister." The muscled man stopped mid-stride, his tattooed neck tensing as he turned. A black woman stood blocking his path, a small Korean girl perched casually on her shoulder. The child's legs dangled, pink sneakers swinging. "Can I talk to you?" Her Korean was flawless, accent-free. He adjusted the duffel bag on his shoulder. "I'm catching a flight." "Just a minute, please." She didn't move. "Why are you doing this?" His jaw tightened. "Why the killings?" Her voice cut through the terminal noise like a blade. "Just 3 days ago, you murdered an innocent woman. Now you're here to finish what you started." I don't understand." The stammer betrayed him. She shifted the girl's weight, pointing across the terminal with her free hand. "That man's sitting there, grieving his wife murdered 3 days ago. You're here to kill him too, with the bomb in that bag you're carrying, isn't it?" "I really don't know what you're saying, young woman." "How much do they pay you to do this?" She stepped closer. The little girl played with her braids, oblivious. "You've murdered over 100 people for them. Now you want to kill this man just because he said no to their bloody gang after his father's death. Your bosses said he must replace his father or face the consequences. God, are you doing this for money, power, influence, or lack of conscience?" His hand drifted toward the bag zipper. "What's your gain?" Her eyes locked onto his. "They send you to kill people while their children enjoy the money. They sit in those offices, driving big cars, and they gave you this motorcycle to run killing jobs for little or no pay. Why? Why this heartlessness?" "That grieving man over there, at gate 47. That man is sitting there, broken, while I showed up yesterday pretending to be his daughter's nanny, now secretly fighting his battle." The killer's eyes widened with recognition, the realization. He doesn't know this girl isn't a nanny. She's here to protect him from his father's secret gang. Her voice dropped lower, intimate and deadly. "This hired killer standing here wanted to bomb the plane he's traveling on, a Valentine's Day trip to Gangnam from Seoul. But his nanny stopped the killer without his knowledge." For a long moment, the terminal seemed to hold its breath. The man's shoulders sagged. The duffel bag slipped from his grip. "Security," she called, switching to English. "Airport security. Do you want to know how a black girl saved the whole of Korea and why? Subscribe to Novatail's TV now. Let's get on this ride together. Like, comment where you are watching from." 16 years earlier. Nairobi, Kenya. The 17-year-old girl sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor, laptop balanced on her knees, K-drama playing on the screen. Rain hammered the tin roof. Her father knocked, entering with tea. "Another gangster show," he smiled. "Dad, look at this." She paused the episode. "These Korean mafias, they kill at will, move money, shed innocent blood, steal, bribe police and politicians, and they walk away every time. It's just television, my daughter." "Is it?" She looked up, something fierce burning in her eyes. "What if someone went there, studied how they operate, learned their language, their systems?" "You want to study Korean gangsters." "I want to study how to stop them." She closed the laptop. "Cybersecurity, criminal operations, whatever they call it in Korea, I want to go to Seoul." Her father set down the tea, studied his daughter's face, the determination he'd seen since she was 5 years old, deciding things, seeing things before they happened. "Then we'll make it happen." 14 years earlier. Seoul, South Korea, first year. Amara stood outside the cramped studio apartment in Itaewon, suitcase at her feet. The landlord, an elderly woman with skeptical eyes, looked her up and down. "You speak Korean?" the woman asked in Korean. "Yes, ma'am. I've been studying for 2 years." "Rent is due on the 1st. No noise after 10. No guests." The apartment was barely larger than her bedroom back home. A single window overlooked an alley where restaurant workers smoked between shifts, but it was hers. That first night, she sat on the thin mattress, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Seoul, delivery motorcycles, drunk karaoke singers, the constant hum of a city that never truly slept. She opened her laptop and resumed the K-drama she'd been watching on the plane. On screen, a gang boss ordered a hit. Clean, efficient, consequence-free. She made a note in her journal. Day 1. Begin surveillance of patterns. Classes at Yonsei University started next week. Criminal justice, cybersecurity, Korean legal systems. She was the only black student in most of her courses. Curious stares followed her everywhere. Professor Kim, a retired detective with gray temples and sharp eyes, paused when taking attendance. Amara Mwangi, from Kenya. Yes, Professor. Why criminal justice? Why Korea? The classroom fell silent. 23 Korean students turned to stare. Because I want to understand how organized crime operates in one of the world's most connected societies, she said in perfect Korean. And I want to learn how to dismantle it. Professor Kim's eyebrows rose. An ambitious goal. A necessary one, Professor. After class, he stopped her. My office, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Professor Kim's office smelled of old books and green tea. Photographs lined the walls, crime scenes, graduation ceremonies, commendations. You're serious, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. You know what you're asking to study? The syndicates here. They're not like the movies. They're sophisticated, connected, ruthless. I know. He leaned back in his chair. I spent 30 years chasing these organizations, lost friends, lost sleep. I almost lost my family. He studied her. What makes a 17-year-old girl from Nairobi think she can succeed where entire police divisions have failed? Because I'm not starting from inside the system, Amara said. I'm an outsider. They won't see me coming. Professor Kim was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled a file from his drawer. The H. Wang Syndicate, money laundering, contract killings, political corruption. They've been operating for 40 years, untouchable. He slid the file across the desk. This stays between us. If you're serious about understanding how they work, start here. Amara opened the file. Crime scene photos, financial records, a family tree of the H. Wang organization. Why are you helping me? Because someone should have stopped them 30 years ago. His eyes were distant. And because I think you might actually be crazy enough to try. 13 years earlier. Amara worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining perfect grades. Mornings at a coffee shop in Gangnam, where businessmen discussed deals in hushed tones. Afternoons studying. Evenings translating documents for a law firm, where she glimpsed the machinery of legal corruption. And late at night, she watched. The H. Wang Syndicate operated from a legitimate import-export business in Yongsan. Amara cataloged their patterns, which restaurants the mid-level operators preferred, which police precincts had officers who looked the other way, which politicians received campaign donations before key votes. She filled notebook after notebook with observations. Pattern: cash deliveries every Tuesday, 11 p.m. rear entrance. Pattern: District Attorney Choi eats at a H. Wang-owned restaurant every Friday. Pattern: enforcement team drives black Hyundai Equus, license plate Kosau Anus 32, Kocha Anus 4892. Professor Kim met with her monthly, reviewing her research. You're building a network map, he said, impressed. Every organization has a structure. Find the structure, find the vulnerabilities. And then we wait. I'm not ready yet. 11 years earlier. The call came at 2 a.m. Her father's voice, small and broken across the distance. Your mother is sick. Cancer, the doctors say. They say we should prepare. Amara sat in her tiny apartment, phone pressed to her ear, and made the hardest decision of her life. I can't come home, Baba. Silence. If I leave now, I will lose everything. My visa, my enrollment. 16 years of planning becomes nothing. Your mother is dying, Amara. Tears streamed down her face. I know, God, I know, but she told me to go. She told me to finish what I started. Remember, she made me promise. Her father wept on the other end of the line. I'll send money, Amara said. Every shilling I can, the best doctors, whatever she needs, but I can't stop. Not now, not when I'm this close to understanding. Understanding what? How to fight monsters, Baba. How to stop men who think they're above justice. After the call, she opened her laptop, found the cheapest flights to Nairobi, calculated the cost against her savings, her rent, her tuition. Then she closed the browser and returned to her research. Her mother died 3 months later. Amara couldn't afford the flight home for the funeral. She sat in a Seoul church she'd never attended before, alone among strangers, and prayed in Swahili while Korean hymns echoed around her. I will make it mean something, Mama. I promise. 9 years earlier. Graduation, top of her class in criminal justice. Job offers from 3 Seoul law firms. She turned them all down. You're making a mistake, Professor Kim said. These are good positions, stable, safe. I didn't come here for safety. Instead, she took a position with the Seoul Metropolitan Police Cybercrimes Division. Entry level, terrible pay, night shifts. You're wasting your education, her supervisor said. You should be in the private sector. I'm exactly where I need to be, she replied. The Cybercrimes Division gave her access to databases, surveillance systems, and digital forensic tools. She volunteered for every case, worked double shifts, learned the systems inside and out. And quietly, methodically, she continued building her case against the H-Wang syndicate. 7 years of surveillance, thousands of pages of documentation, financial trails through 17 shell companies, connections to 43 murders, payoffs to 12 government officials. But she needed proof that would hold in court, proof that couldn't be buried or dismissed, proof that would bring down not just the soldiers, but the commanders. She needed someone, inside the organization, to make a mistake. 8 years earlier, Park Dong-hyun ran a legitimate shipping company by day. By night, he was the H-Wang syndicate's logistics coordinator, moving money, moving weapons, moving bodies when necessary. But unlike most syndicate members, Park Dong-hyun had a conscience that occasionally troubled him. He had 3 children. My son, Jae-hoon, is studying architecture at university. A daughter, So-ra, a high school teacher. Another daughter, Mi-sun, a graphic designer. Amara identified him as the weak link. She began documenting his movements with particular care, noted that he attended church on Sundays, that he donated to children's charities, that he seemed to avoid the more violent operations when possible. A man with regrets, she wrote, a man who might be convinced to talk. But before she could approach him, Park Dong-hyun had a massive stroke. He died 3 days later. At the funeral, Amara stood in the back of the memorial hall, observing. Jae-hoon, mid-20s, architectural blueprints sticking from his bag, grief-stricken but composed. So-ra, crying quietly, comforting elderly relatives. Mi-sun, angry, fists clenched. And the H-Wang syndicate representatives, circling like sharks. She watched as they approached Jae-hoon. Quiet conversation, polite smiles, but the message was clear. Your father's position is now yours. You will take his place, or your family will suffer. Jae-hoon's face went pale. Amara made her decision at that moment. She would protect the Park family, use them to finally expose the syndicate, get the evidence she needed from the inside. She just needed time. 7 years earlier to 3 weeks before the airport. The campaign against the Park family was methodical and brutal. First, they came for Mi-sun, a hit-and-run driver outside her studio, killed instantly. The police called it an accident. The driver was never found. Jae-hoon attended another funeral. His wife, Yoon Hae-jin, stood beside him, 8 months pregnant. So-ra wept openly. Again, the syndicate representatives appeared, more insistent now. Your father's debt must be honored. We're patient men, but patience has limits. Jae-hoon refused. I'm an architect. I don't know anything about my father's business. You'll learn, or we'll visit your sister, your pregnant wife, your coming child. 2 months later, So-ra was gunned down outside her school. broad daylight. 14 students witnessed it. No one could identify the shooter. Jae-hoon's daughter, Min-jae, was born 1 week after So-ra's funeral. A tiny, perfect thing in a world that had become a nightmare. For 6 years, the threats continued. Constant pressure. Jae-hoon moved houses 4 times, hired private security, lived in constant fear. But he refused to join the syndicate. And then, 3 weeks ago, Yoon Hae-jin was shot outside her workplace. 5 bullets. She died before the ambulance arrived. Min-jae, now 5 years old, didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming home. Jae-hoon understood. He understood perfectly. He booked a Valentine's Day trip to Gangnam. Anything to escape Seoul, even for a few days. Anywhere to give Min-jae one happy memory before whatever came next. 1 week before the airport, Amara had watched the entire tragedy unfold, documented every death, every threat, every police report that went nowhere, every investigation that stalled mysteriously. She had her evidence now: digital trails, recorded conversations, financial records, witness statements from victims too terrified to speak publicly but willing to speak to her privately. But she needed one more piece: a live operation, a crime caught in the act with irrefutable proof. She hacked into the syndicate's encrypted communications, found the order: kill Park Jae-hoon and his daughter during their Valentine's trip, make it look like an accident, bomb the plane. Perfect. She showed up at Jae-hoon's apartment the next morning, knocked on the door. He answered, exhausted, 5-year-old Min-jae clinging to his leg. Mr. Park, my name is Amara Mwangi. I'm looking for work as a nanny. I heard you might need help with your daughter. He stared at her, confused. I didn't post any job listing. I know, but I heard through. Connections, you're planning a trip. I have childcare experience. I speak Korean and English. I can help. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was fate. Maybe he was just too exhausted to argue. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, the trip is in 1 week. Amara smiled. I'll take good care of Min-jae, I promise. Now back to Incheon International Airport. The security team swarmed. The hired killer, surrounded, didn't resist. Media crews materialized like sharks scenting blood. Cameras, microphones, shouted questions in Korean. A reporter thrust a mic toward her. Who are you? How did you know? She adjusted the little girl on her hip, glanced toward the man at gate 47. Park Jae-hoon, widower, orphan, target. I'm his wife. The words dropped like stones. Jae-hoon's head snapped up from his hands. His red-rimmed eyes found hers across the terminal. Confusion, shock, something else. The reporter pressed, how did you know there was a bomb? I've been investigating the Hwang crime syndicate for 16 years, Amara said calmly, in perfect Korean. This man, she gestured to the detained killer, is Kim Tae-sung, hired assassin, responsible for 112 murders. The bomb in his bag was meant to kill my husband and daughter during their flight to Gangnam. Cameras flashed, microphones crowded closer. You've been investigating for 16 years. Who are you? Amara Mwangi, officer with Seoul Metropolitan Police Cybercrimes Division, originally from Nairobi, Kenya. A foreign officer, investigating Korean organized crime. Crime has no nationality, she said. Neither does justice. After the cameras left, after the killer was hauled away, after the bomb squad cleared the scene, Jae-hoon approached her. Min-jae had fallen asleep against Amara's shoulder, exhausted from the chaos. Why did you say that? His voice was hoarse from crying. About being my wife, you know what my life is now, what they'll do if. I had to say it to protect you. They could kill us both. I don't care. She met his eyes. They will never kill anyone close to you again. Everything is in place to expose them. How do you know all this? His hands trembled. The murderers, the killings, the bomb, the hired killer, his bosses, how? She smiled, tired, sad, cert. I've been watching them for 16 years, Jae-hoon. Since I was 17 in Nairobi, watching K-dramas and wondering why no one stopped the blood. I came here, I learned, I graduated, I watched them murder your sister, then me son, then Sora, then your wife shot outside her workplace 5 days ago. Her jaw tightened. So I became your daughter's nanny. I asked you, pretended I needed the job. You agreed, promised to take us to Seoul for Valentine's Day. You did this for justice, protection, because someone has to. He sank into a chair. 16 years. You've been planning this for 16 years. Planning, studying, suffering, learning to see the patterns no one else noticed, building a case that can't be buried. She shifted Minjai's weight gently. Tomorrow, 17 members of the Hwang syndicate leadership will be arrested simultaneously. 12 police officers, 4 politicians, 23 business collaborators. The evidence is already with prosecutors who can't be bought. The international media has the documents. It's over, Jae-hoon. It's finally over. Tears streamed down his face. My sisters, my wife, they're gone. I know, I'm sorry I couldn't save them. I tried, but I needed evidence that would hold. Evidence that would destroy the entire organization, not just arrest a few soldiers while the generals escaped. She touched his shoulder. But Minjai is safe now. You're safe. No one will threaten your family again. How can I ever thank you? Raise your daughter. Let her grow up without fear. That's enough, thanks. The next day, the arrests happened at dawn. Coordinated raids across Seoul. International news crews captured it all. 17 high-ranking members of the Hwang crime syndicate were arrested, the news anchor announced. Police and prosecutors credit Officer Amara Mwangi, a Kenyan immigrant who spent 16 years building this case. Amara sat in the police headquarters conference room, surrounded by evidence boxes, giving her statement to the prosecutor general. Officer Mwangi, this documentation is extraordinary. Financial records going back 12 years, surveillance data, encrypted communications, witness testimonies from 43 victims or their families. I had time, she said simply, and motivation. You worked alone. Mostly, Professor Kim from Yonsei University provided initial guidance, but the investigation itself, yes, alone. Why? Because the moment I brought other people in, the syndicate would have found out. They had informants everywhere. The only way to build a clean case was to do it where they couldn't see me. The prosecutor general shook his head in wonder. A foreign student, working alone, bringing down one of Korea's most powerful crime organizations. They made one mistake, Amara said. They assumed no one was watching. They assumed they were invisible. They were wrong. 2 months later, the trial was the biggest in Korean history, televised nationally. International observers from Interpol, the FBI, and the UN. Amara testified for 11 hours across 3 days. Methodical, precise. Every document labeled and explained. Every connection is drawn. Every crime is linked to its perpetrators. The defense attorneys tried to discredit her. Officer Mwangi, isn't it true you conducted this investigation without proper authorization? I conducted it during my off hours as a concerned citizen documenting criminal activity. Once I had sufficient evidence, I brought it to the proper authorities. You're not even Korean. How can you understand the complexities of our society? Crime is crime regardless of culture. Murder is murder. Corruption is corruption. These aren't complex concepts. You claim to have worked alone for 16 years. That seems obsessive. Yes, it was. When you watch innocent people die and no one stops it, obsession becomes necessary. The gallery erupted in applause. The judge banged his gavel. In the end, all 17 leadership members were convicted. Sentences ranging from 25 years to life. The corrupt police officers lost their badges. The politicians lost their positions. The Hwang crime syndicate, after 40 years of operation, was finished. 6 months after the airport, the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency ceremony blazed with flash photography. Commissioner Park stood at the podium. Officer Amara Mwangi, formerly of Nairobi, Kenya, 16-year resident of our nation, graduate of our finest criminal justice program, has single-handedly dismantled the Hwang crime syndicate. 17 arrests, including the organization's leadership. 112 murders solved. Corruption exposed at the highest levels. Applause thundered through the hall. For her extraordinary service, Officer Mwangi is hereby promoted to Senior Detective, Special Crimes Division, and awarded the Order of Civil Merit, Seongniu Medal. Jae-hoon sat in the front row, Min-jae beside him. His daughter wore the pink dress Amara had bought her, the one she'd been wearing that day at the airport. After the ceremony, in the quiet of the reception hall, Jae-hoon found her. "I want to ask you something." She turned, metal gleaming on her uniform. "Marry me," the words tumbled out. "For protection, for Min-jae, for..." "You're protected now, Jae-hoon." Her voice was gentle. "Protected whether there's love or anything else. The syndicate is finished. Their network is destroyed. You're safe." "That's not why I'm asking." She studied his face, the grief lines softening now, the first hints of healing. "I know," she said quietly, "but you need time. Time to grieve properly. Time to be Min-jae's father without fear. Time to remember who you were before all this blood. And you." "I have work to do," she smiled. 112 murders solved, thousands more unsolved in the city, gangs still operating, money is still moving in the shadows. The girl who watched K-dramas in Nairobi is now the woman who ends them. She touched his hand briefly, a promise, a goodbye, a maybe someday. Then she walked into the Seoul night, where the next case waited, where justice never slept, where a black girl from Nairobi had become the city's most feared defender. Min-jae tugged her father's sleeve. "Is Amara coming home?" Jae-hoon watched her disappear into the crowd. "Yes," he said, "she's already home." 1 year later. Amara's phone rang constantly now. Morning calls from families whose loved ones had been murdered by gang violence. Afternoon calls from former gang members seeking redemption. Evening calls from police stations across Korea requesting her expertise. She sat in her new office, larger now, with windows overlooking Seoul, and answered each one with the same patient attention. "Senior Detective Mwangi." "Detective, my name is Lee Soo-jin. My brother was killed 5 years ago. The police said it was a mugging, but I know it was the Jopok syndicate. Can you help?" Amara pulled up a new file on her computer. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." She worked 16-hour days, built cases like an architect building structures, foundations first, then walls, then roofs. Nothing rushed, nothing sloppy. And slowly, steadily, other crime organizations in Korea began to fall. The Jopok syndicate in Busan, dismantled after an 8-month investigation. The Red Dragon trafficking network, 17 arrests, 43 victims freed. The White Crane money laundering operation, $400 million in illegal funds seized. Each case is meticulously documented. Each prosecution is airtight. Her reputation spread beyond Korea. Interpol requested her assistance on international cases. The FBI invited her to train American agents. The UN offered her a position on their organized crime task force. She declined them all. "My work is here," she told them. "Korea gave me an education, gave me an opportunity, gave me purpose. I'm not finished repaying that debt." 2 years later. Universities began requesting her as a speaker. Yonsei, Seoul National, Korea University, even high schools. She stood before the auditorium of students and told her story, not in a rehearsed way, but honestly. The loneliness, the fear, the nights she almost quit, the mother she couldn't bury, the years of poverty and struggle. "Why did you keep going?" a student asked. "Because someone had to. Because I saw evil and decided I couldn't look away." She paused. "And because a wise woman once told me that the people who change the world are the ones too stubborn to accept it as it is." "Was that your mother?" "Yes. My mother died while I was thousands of miles away, chasing a dream that probably seemed crazy to everyone who knew me." The auditorium was silent. "Do you regret it?" another student asked. I regret that I couldn't say goodbye to her. I regret every victim I couldn't save. But I don't regret the choice to fight. She looked across the young faces. Evil wins when good people decide comfort is more important than justice. I decided 16 years ago that my comfort didn't matter more than other people's lives. After the speech, students lined up with questions. How can I be like you? Don't be like me, be better. Learn from my mistakes. Start earlier. Build networks instead of working alone. And remember that justice isn't about glory or recognition. It's about the people you save. A young woman approached, shy and hesitant. Detective Mwangi, I'm also not Korean. I'm from Vietnam. People say I can't be a real police officer here because I'm foreign. Did people say that to you? Amara smiled. Constantly, and you know what I told them? What? Nothing. I just kept working. Let your results speak louder than their prejudice. 3 years later, Park Jae-hoon stood at his architecture firm's ribbon-cutting ceremony. The building he'd designed, a community center for crime victims and their families, gleamed in the Seoul sunlight. Amara attended, standing in the back as always. Min-jae, now 8, spotted her and ran over. Amara, you came. Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it. Daddy says you're too busy now. You don't visit anymore. I know, I'm sorry about that, but I think about you every day. Jae-hoon approached. 3 years had treated him kindly. The grief lines had faded. He smiled more, laughed occasionally. Thank you for coming. It's a beautiful building, Jae-hoon. It's named the Yoon Hae-jin Memorial Center, for my wife, and for all the victims who didn't survive. Amara's throat tightened. She would be proud. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Min-jae play with other children. Safe children, protected children. I've met someone, Jae-hoon said quietly. Her name is Park Sun-hee. She's a social worker, good with Min-jae, kind. I'm happy for you. Are you, really? Yes, you deserve happiness. Min-jae deserves a family without shadows. And you, do you deserve happiness? Amara watched the children playing. I have my work, that's enough. Is it? She didn't answer. 4 years later. The awards kept coming. The Presidential Medal of Honor, the International Association of Women Police Award, the UN Humanitarian Service Medal. Amara attended the ceremonies, accepted the awards, gave brief speeches, and returned to work. Her team had grown. 12 detectives now work under her supervision. Former victims she'd helped, young officers inspired by her story, even a few reformed gang members seeking redemption. They called themselves Amara's Army as a joke. She hated the name but allowed it because it boosted morale. Together, they were dismantling Korea's organized crime structure piece by piece. Methodical, relentless, unstoppable. But the work took its toll. One night, after a particularly brutal case, a trafficking ring that had enslaved children, Amara sat alone in her office at 3 a.m., staring at crime scene photos. Professor Kim found her there. He is retired now, but still visits occasionally. You can't save them all, Amara. I know. Then why do you keep trying? She looked up, eyes red from exhaustion and tears. Because if I stop, who will? If I say this is too hard, I've done enough. What happens to the next victim? The next family destroyed? You've already done more than most people accomplish in 10 lifetimes. It's not enough. It's never enough. Professor Kim sat down across from her. Your mother, what would she say? Amara closed her eyes. She'd say I'm working too hard, that I should find balance, fall in love, have children, build a life. Smart woman. But she's also the one who taught me that some things are worth sacrificing for. Those comfortable lives are built on the suffering of others if we're not careful. That justice matters more than comfort. Yes, I know, I taught you the same thing, he sighed. I was wrong. Amara's eyes opened. What? I was wrong. Justice matters, yes, but so do you. So does your life, your happiness, your peace. He gestured at the crime scene photos. This work will outlive us all. There will always be another gang, another criminal, another victim. If you sacrifice everything for this fight, what's left when it's over? It'll never be over. Exactly. So you need to decide what kind of life you're going to live while fighting it. 5 years after the airport. Jae-hoon's wedding to Sun-hee was small and beautiful. Min-jae served as flower girl, beaming in her white dress. Amara attended, sitting in the back row as always. She watched Jae-hoon smile, truly smile, for the first time since she'd known him. I watched Min-jae giggle and dance. Watched a family rebuilding itself from ashes. During the reception, Min-jae dragged her to the dance floor. "Dance with me, Amara." They danced badly, laughing. Min-jae stepped on her toes. Amara twirled her in dizzying circles. "Are you happy, Amara?" the child asked suddenly. "What?" "Are you happy? Daddy says you're always working, that you never rest. Are you happy?" Out of the mouths of children. "I'm happy when I help people," Amara said carefully. "When I catch bad guys and keep families safe, that makes me happy." "But what about family? Don't you want a family?" Amara looked across the reception. Jae-hoon and Sun-hee dancing. Former victims she'd saved, now thriving. Police officers she'd trained. Families she'd protected. "I have a family," she said. "It's just bigger than most." The phone calls continued. Every day, multiple times a day. Former gang members. "Detective Mwangi, I want to leave this life. Can you help me?" Victims' families. "My daughter was killed 10 years ago. The case went cold. Can you reopen it?" Police stations. "We have a trafficking case. Can you consult?" Young officers. "How did you do it? How did one person bring down an entire syndicate?" Parents. "My son wants to be a detective like you. What should I tell him?" She answered each call with patience, gave advice, took cases, mentored young officers, guided reformed criminals toward legitimate lives. Her reputation has transcended borders now. The black girl from Nairobi who saved Korea. The detective who worked alone for 16 years to bring down an empire of crime. Documentary crews requested interviews. Publishers offered book deals. Hollywood producers wanted to option her story. She declined them all. "My story isn't finished," she told them. "And I don't need fame, I need results." Amara stood on the roof of Seoul Metropolitan Police Headquarters, looking out over the city. Twilight. The lights begin to flicker on across the endless urban sprawl. 7 years since the airport. 16 years total in Korea. 23 years since a 17-year-old girl in Nairobi decided the world could be different. How many lives had she saved? She'd stopped counting after 500. How many families are protected? How many criminals are prosecuted? How many gangs dismantled? The work continued, would always continue. But Professor Kim's words echoed. What's left when it's over? Her phone buzzed. Text message from Jae-hoon. "Min-jae is asking about you. Says she misses her guardian angel. Dinner this weekend." She smiled, typed back, "Yes, I'll bring dessert." Another message, from one of her detectives. "Boss, we got a lead on the Golden Phoenix trafficking network. Need your eyes on this." She typed, "Send me the files, I'll review tonight." A third message, from an unknown number. "Detective Mwangi, my name is Chen Wei. I'm a student from China studying at Korea University. I want to be a detective like you. Can I ask you some questions?" She paused. I looked out at Seoul, the city she'd adopted, the city that had adopted her. Then she typed, "Yes, come to my office tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring questions and determination. If you're serious about this work, I'll teach you what I know." Below in the streets, life continued. Families heading home, young couples on dates, children playing. All protected by a network of justice that had begun with one stubborn girl who refused to accept that evil could win. She descended from the roof, back to her office, back to the files and evidence and endless pursuit of justice. The work was never finished. But neither was she. To all those watching around the world, do not look down on people. Do not dismiss those who seem different, foreign, or unlikely. the teenage girl in Nairobi watching K-dramas. She became Korea's greatest detective. The foreign student struggling with a new language. She dismantled criminal empires. The outsider no one expected to succeed. She saved thousands of lives. We all have the power to see farther than those around us, to notice patterns others miss, to fight battles others avoid. The question is not whether you can make a difference. The question is whether you're willing to sacrifice comfort for justice, willing to stand alone when necessary, willing to spend 16 years building a case when others would have quit after 16 days. Amara Mwangi spent 16 years learning and suffering in Korea to bring down the most dangerous mafia gang the world has ever known. She did it without recognition, without support, without anyone believing it was possible. She did it because someone had to, and because she was too stubborn to accept the world as it was. What battle are you avoiding? What injustice are you ignoring? What difference could you make if you stopped waiting for permission and started working? Trust those who can see farther than you. Listen to the voices others dismiss. Believe in the outsiders with crazy dreams. Because sometimes, the person who will change everything is the one no one expected. The black girl from Nairobi. The foreign student. The nanny who was actually a guardian angel. Never underestimate anyone. Never. Like and subscribe to support more stories that challenge what you think is possible. Comment below where you're watching from and who inspired you to never give up.